Hey everyone, Chloe here, and welcome back to this womanhood platform, and welcome back to my channel. And if you are new here, ladies and lurkers and ear hustlers, welcome. So I wanted to weigh in on and to have a follow-up conversation on Ms. Meagan Good, the protectionism cleanup woman, now that a court decision has finally been made in the Jonathan Majors case versus the state of New York in regards to him being found guilty in a court of law of assault and harassment of his former girlfriend, Ms. Grace Jabari, during a domestic dispute. And the verdict was reached this past Monday by a 6-person jury after over 4 hours of deliberation spread across 3 days. So the Bible in court antics flopped, and the "but she chased him" Jonathan Majors fangirlies can continue to cry, vomit, and pass out, but as it stands, the actor is set to be sentenced on February the 6th. Now, of course, the flapping gums and the "he's the modern Emmett Till" spinsters and the all-around discourse and conjecture around this topic, as expected, has been very low vibrational and high-key toxic and twisted, just like it was with the Tory Lanez and the Meagan Thee Stallion verdict, where violated women are somehow always being irrationally blamed by both the manosphere foot soldiers and the pick-me-sha handmaidens for their own abuse. Now, all gaslighting tactics aside, what has happened to Jonathan Majors is not about black men versus white women. And yes, there is a brutal history there, but black men are responsible for understanding their own history. And Jonathan is a grown man who has his own agency, just like anybody else, whether man or woman, who interracially dates. So he is the one who ultimately made the choice to be with this woman. But ultimately, and you can go argue with your dirty bundles, but this verdict was not about color. This verdict was about domestic violence. And sometimes people need to be reminded, regardless of color, that this was not a fight between two equals. This was a fight between a man who is much bigger and who at the time was way more swole than his woman. Just like Meagan Thee Stallion was violated by a short man with a gun. So in both cases, no matter how often people who side with abusers try to spin this, these are not equal fights. And just because the victim was white does not mean that she doesn't deserve justice. What it means is that Jonathan Majors needs to learn how to keep his abuser hands to himself. And let me quickly address the elephant in the room, because regardless as to how you may feel about interracial dating, both black men and black women are in interracial relationships. Get over it. And no matter how much people decide to moan and groan about it, interracial dating and biracial children aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And yes, I find it highly offensive that if the woman in question were a black woman, that Mr. Jonathan Majors' career could have been saved, because black women deserve equal justice just as much as any other race of woman, whether a man's career is in jeopardy or not. And thankfully, because of this Me Too movement, violence against women is being taken way more seriously now, as it rightfully should be. But I wanted to use this video as an opportunity to unpack protectionism, which unfortunately continues to plague black women in large numbers. Now, protectionism is a very complex historical and cultural gender reaction and a defense mechanism response that will often come in the form of gender coddling, pampering, spoiling, babying, excuse making, deflecting, or a cultural brand of blame shifting, or a brand of cognitive dissonance that is generationally practiced by many black women, both young and mature. And although black culture is not the only culture that practices protectionism, there are mama's boys in every culture. Many black women are responsible for carrying out this very one-sided form of protection. And there are countless examples of problematic black men whom for the most part are supported, defended, and who are made excuses for by male-identified black women. See them, know them, spot them. The root causes of protectionism are many: a historical distrust due to the injustices and the very lopsided and unfair practices of the penal system, internalized misogyny, and overall women in general tend to view each other as competition and therefore are less inclined to naturally support one another, are less inclined to forgive each other for the slightest of offenses, and are less inclined to show each other compassion. And men know this. Women are infamously known to be more harsher, more critical, and more punishing and more punitive to each other, especially for the attention, the protection, and the resources of men. Are all women like this? Absolutely not. Are many women like this? An unequivocal yes. So feeling sorry for Mr. Jonathan Majors at his big age is the least of my concerns. What is concerning is how Ms. Meagan Coretta King is going to pivot in her disastrous PR decision to align herself with and to stand by a man who was on trial for basically being a sophisticated abuser. Because whether paid or not, she definitely took a gamble by putting her 42-year-old reputation on the line for this 34-year-old man. So Meagan isn't thinking straight at all, and she definitely isn't thinking about hypergamy or resting in her feminine, because she unfortunately has a nasty case of that ride or die savior syndrome and that one-sided protectionism loyalty. And for those of you who have been in domestic violence situations, I know you're listening. A sophisticated abuser is a master manipulator who basically knows how to publicly make himself look like the good guy. He knows exactly where to punch you, to hide the scars. He knows how to get you to protect him, even when he's the one who's harming you. He knows how to guilt trip you into being his savior, and he knows how to manipulate your heartstrings to get his needs met. But unfortunately for Jonathan Majors, those ugly, ugly texts about threatening to take his own life and choosing not to defend himself on the stand is what really did him in. And yes, Jonathan is a great actor, and yes, he was up and his career was on the rise, but he has no one, absolutely no one to blame but himself, because all actions come with consequences. And right about now, before 2024, would be the perfect opportunity for him to get the intense therapy and the anger management that he so desperately needs for his personal private hell and his private demons and that tick tick boom temper, so that he can begin to clean up his reputation, as this will only pave the way for his ex to follow up with a civil lawsuit. And there are also whispers of other past girlfriends who are willing to speak out on his abuse, and it is very telling that no one of any stature has agreed to publicly support this man. And there are also inquiries being done over in London. So this chaotic mess of what Jonathan Majors has brought to the relationship table is far from over. And if you think about it, if a man were truly in love with you, would he have you in court fighting his battles? Now, while we all weep in Coretta Scott King, the question that is begging to be answered is, why would Meagan put both her reputation and her career on the line of a sinking ship? Why would she allow her image to be used to pander to black women for optics? Why would she voluntarily walk side by side by a man who's on trial for striking his girlfriend? Because sadly, these actions say a lot about her character. Standing side by side with this man, low-key, is sending very defiant messaging of endorsing domestic violence. And I don't know whether or not her divorce to her ex-husband truly gutted her, but her actions do say a lot about the current headspace that she is in, because it's giving delusion, because she is clearly chasing a happy ending by any means necessary. Jonathan is 34, Meagan is 42, and I just want to know, at her big age, what is her end game if this relationship in fact is real? He's already been dropped by Disney for basically being kryptonite and poison fruit. So what does Meagan stand to gain from a man who is probably still trauma bonded to his ex? And I really hate this for her. But for her to intentionally jump onto a sinking boat with holes in it does speak to a high level of desperation, money bag or not. So now would be the right time for Ms. Meagan Good to read the tea leaves, because she is with a man who is currently losing it all. And a man who is losing it all, especially with his reputation, will absolutely be no fun to be around, as this guilty verdict will be a domino effect crash back down to reality, especially when a man has had to pay a dire price for the consequences of his own actions. So Meagan truly did jump out of the divorce frying pan only to jump into a hot, greasy hell. Because if this man doesn't get the help that he needs, he's going to do what all short-sighted habitual abusers do. He's probably moving furniture as we speak. He's going to play the blame game, which in turn will become a thick cloud of resentment and grief and anger and rage at himself for fumbling the biggest bag of his life. And yes, he's going to resent his ex, and overall, he's going to continue to have a low opinion of women, which is what got him in trouble in the first place. And then that anger is going to turn into a depression. And guess who's going to be on the punching bag receiving end of all of that emotional trash? Ms. Want-to-done Meagan, who is looking to be the period at the end of this man's love story. Either way, love doesn't hurt and love will never ever include violence, but if Meagan likes it, I love it. But instead of trying to be a protectionism band-aid for a broken man, she needs to exit stage left, because had the shoe been on the other foot, a man would never ever stand by his woman's side, risking his career while in court, while she is on trial for basically throwing her own life away. So ladies and lurkers, to get this conversation started, are you repulsed that Meagan Coretta King is standing by her abuser? Did Meagan do it all for a payday, or is she really heart invested? Is Meagan the beautiful giving you second and third hand embarrassment from her public support of this man? And why are women so willing to go to bat for men who are clearly in the wrong? And as always, I thank you for listening. I thank you for watching, and I thank you for subscribing. And I absolutely love reading your comments. And please remember to like and to share if you care, to further grow our feminine community. And please stay tuned for more videos to come. And I will catch up with you ladies and lurkers and ear hustlers in the next one.